Max Abrahms is a terrorism expert at the Northeastern University. He joins us on the line now from Boston. Max Abrahms, good to talk to you again. Does this make both groups stronger?
I think that it does. You know, both groups, when you think about it, they're in similar situations because they're in a time of relative weakness for them. I believe that in the coming months, Islamic State is going to get battered increasingly in its stronghold of Iraq. The Battle of Tikrit is going to be bloody, but ultimately, I think Islamic State is going to lose. And the same is true about in Mosul. And so Islamic State, more and more, I think people will think of it less as a group based, in Iraq and Syria, and in a more sort of international group that's less sort of caliphate minded, if you will. And so more and more Islamic State is metastasizing and decentralizing into, all these different power vacuums, I think partly in anticipation of what's going to come. And in the same way, Boko Haram is in a newfound position of weakness. The Nigerian military has suddenly gotten serious to actually really take on Boko Haram. And in these battles, the Nigerian military is doing better and better. And furthermore, there are additional regional allies, particularly Chad, and they seem to be working together. And furthermore, both Boko Haram and Islamic State seem to be having a bit of a manpower crunch. And I believe that's why increasingly both groups are turning to the use of women, including as suicide bombers. And so, again, these groups are in a position of relative weakness. And so it makes sense for them more and more to try to, coalesce.
Does it also mean, however, that the outside world has to engage with what's going on in the northeast of Nigeria? Perhaps it hasn't done that in the way that it's constantly engaged with what goes on across the Middle East and other aspects of what goes on in the Middle East. So Islamic State in Syria, Islamic State in Iraq, yes, the world is across that, but Nigeria is a place, a space that, say, the State Department perhaps is not as up on as it is when it comes to the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no question. When the international community thinks about Boko Haram, historically, I think they've thought of, a civil war that's been contained largely within Nigeria. And of course, increasingly it's spread out to, within its neighbors, Chad, Cameroon, etc. And so people more and more are seeing it, less as a civil war than as a regional conflict. But it's not a truly international threat. And now that there's this merger between Boko Haram and Islamic State, I think that coalition countries will really, even take on Boko Haram. That's a very real possibility. Particularly the French with their historic legacy in Africa, I wouldn't be surprised if they dealt more and more with Boko Haram. And if you look at the resolution on military force in the United States going on, the language used there is very loose, and it includes not just Islamic States, but associates of Islamic States. And that now, I think, would include Boko Haram. So I would not be surprised if the U.S.-led coalition against Islamic State turns more attention to Boko Haram.
Max Abrahms, thank you very much.